family. Hello, hello. Welcome back. It's time for another lunar cycle video. I missed last month's report. I was hospitalized. Sorry. I'm back, obviously, and I'm healing well. Thank you to everybody who sent me kind wishes and healing support over the last month. So as we approach late April 2022, it's eclipse season. And this lunar cycle has two of them, a solar and a lunar, so we might expect the unexpected this month. Things usually get shaken up, kind of agitated, activated at these times. Old cycles tend to come to completion. New cycles tend to initiate with eclipses. The new moon starts with a partial solar eclipse for the new moon, April 30th, 2022. And that's backed by the stars of constellation Aries, conjunct to the planet of disruption, Uranus. So this cycle promises to support a lot of action, a lot of activity. It peaks in a full moon on the 15th of May, 2022, or 16th of May for many in the Eastern Hemisphere. And that's with a total lunar eclipse visible from much of the Americas. It's a blood moon backed by the stars of constellation Libra. I'm going to use true sidereal, aka constellational astrology, with an uneven zodiac that matches the actual sky. This is different from mainstream astrology, which uses zodiac of even signs with 30 degrees each. So, some of you may have noticed that I said new moon in Aries. Well, I know that a lot of the Western world, the more mainstream Western world, places this eclipse in Taurus, but when we look at the visible sky at the time of the alignment, new moon, we're in the territory of Aries. So, this is how I'm going to read the sky. Through the lens of constellational astrology. And in the actual sky, the sun and moon are here in Aries with Uranus and the North Node, and Mercury is in Taurus. As we move back, we have Pisces occupied by Eris, Chiron, a very close Jupiter-Venus conjunction, and Neptune at home here, ruling their own stars. We have Mars transiting Aquarius and Saturn slowly finishing up Capricorn, while Pluto even more slowly finishes up Sagittarius. The South Node is in Libra, and the other half of the heavens is empty. So when we look at the new moon here on April 30th, 2022, just want to start by introducing the idea of the new moon chart. And that's a chart in which we see the expression or the intention of the whole lunar cycle, what wants to happen that month. This new moon, April 30th, is a solar eclipse, and it's conjoined Uranus in Aries. So it's a solar eclipse because it's conjoined one of the nodes, in this case the North Node, all of which are backed by the stars of Aries. There are several other very interesting formations here attending this new moon, so let's start to break it all down. If we take a look at Aries, the stars of Aries, which are the backdrop and the energetic sort of template for this lunar cycle and this new moon, what we have in Aries is a place where we separate from spirit and become individual, with sort of the descent of spirit into matter, where we're going to initiate a new journey around the zodiac. And this is more in a psychological sense, that Aries is just that initiating fire. And this corresponds more to psychological development and the process of individuation than it really does to any particular map of the stars that I'm trying to put forth as definitive. You can start the journey around the zodiac anywhere, but it's very traditional to start it with Aries and to end it with Pisces. So with Aries, we have just the primal urge, and with Pisces, we have absorption into the spirit. And as we move around, we're coming back down. We're coming down out of the lessons in the land realm, if you will, of Pisces, and we're entering again into something definite and concrete. So this initiates things, new patterns, new habits, new ideas, thoughts, and actions can take place here in Aries. Aries is primal, it's instinctive, it's raw, assertive, aggressive. It reflects our militant side. It reflects the martial, conquering, very brave, very adventurous energy in the psyche. And in Aries, we have and we identify desires. We develop initiatives and intentions around those desires, and we take action to meet those desires. This is what Aries does. Aries figures out what it wants and it makes moves to get it. It's action-oriented, very driven set of stars. Aries is a fire sign, and for all its pioneering, adventurous warriorhood, it definitely, like fire, has a sort of expansive and potentially destructive quality to it. So we have to be careful with Aries, and this expresses in the martial, the aggressive, the militant, the desire to overcome, overpower, to hold power over others. You see this sort of fire expression of Aries. And with the sun and moon together with Uranus, what we have is the two luminaries, the two main signifiers and reflectors of the process of collective evolution, these sort of bodies in the sky that most closely reflect the conscious process at work at any given time. And they're with Uranus. And Uranus is a very interesting planet. This planet is futuristic. It is interested in the next thing. It is interested in change. It's interested in disruption to the status quo, in evolution, in sort of radical and unconventional means of shaking things up and catalyzing unexpected change. So where Uranus and Aries overlap is an interest in freedom and independence. They both share that. They both get very, very interested in that, as well as a connection to instincts that they share. Uranus is really more of like a knowing instinct, and Aries tends to be a little more like a feeling instinct. There's a connection between Uranus and Aries with the themes of spontaneity. They're both very spontaneous energies, and with enthusiasm. They can be rowdy. They get enthusiastic. So we have freedom, independence, instinct, spontaneity, and enthusiasm. These are really the Venn diagram overlap of the stars of Aries and the planet Uranus. There may be others. There may be a lot that I'm missing. In the interest of time, we're just going to take a look at the really important points, the really standout aspects. Now, this new moon is an eclipse. So we're bringing the North Node into it. And here we have the trifecta, the big event this month. We have North Node, Uranus, new moon in Aries. The eclipse happens near the North Node, and that tends to distort things, and it tends to give a really insatiable appetite. The North Node is a force that tends to make you want something, but it's very hard to ever feel like you get it. And eclipse seasons happen approximately every 6 months. So the next 6 month cycle, until the next eclipse season could be marked by expressions of an Aries North Node Uranus type nature, such as corrupt expressions of military energy or testing our luck and good fortune by taking risks. That's another example of how that might fit together. We may disrupt old habits and initiate new ones. Or we may seek freedom and personal independence with greater fervor under this influence. And those are just some examples of the potential expressions of the energies at play. The moon and sun conjunction, new moon, in Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is occupying an interesting position in the sky because it is in the stars of Aquarius, resonant with Uranus, and Uranus is, of course, in the stars of Aries, resonant with Mars, and the two of them are sextile each other. Nice sextile, 2.5 degrees, and this is going to increase that resonance. It's going to increase the synergy, the synchronization. It's going to increase that Venn diagram overlap. It's going to just increase the force of those qualities that we had just talked about. The qualities that Uranus and Aries share, that Mars and Aquarius are also bringing into this. It's a very lucky combination. It's incredibly fortunate. There are other factors this month, like obstacle type factors and factors in the process of this lunar cycle, which make me think that it's not a great time actually to take risks or roll any dice that you might not be sure of. There's just too many other factors, too many obstacles, and we'll get to that later in the video. But otherwise, Mars and Uranus, Aquarius, Aries, all of these forces, when they're combined, when they're in contact, when they're resonant with each other, very, very, very lucky, extraordinarily lucky combo. Probably the luckiest in astrology. Another interesting thing going on here. I said there were a couple interesting formations. One of them is this Jupiter, Venus, Neptune triple conjunction, especially because Jupiter and Venus are just 2 minutes, a 0 degree, very close conjunction. And this is generally very auspicious. Both planets do really well in Pisces. They relate very supportively here to Mercury and Pluto, which are going to stay connected for much of this cycle by the trine. So this is a powerful signature that comes to bear on not just this lunar cycle, but of course the next 6 months. And I want to take just a little bit of time and look at this. With all the stars and the planets involved, it could place emphasis on spiritual values. That's going to be a Piscean thing. It's also a Sagittarian thing. Reconciling any division or paradox there. That's Pluto's specialty, division and paradox. And we have Pluto connected to Mercury, giving depth and power, insight, and access to just weird knowings to Mercury. So what's really empowered this month, what's really empowered is the kind of inner considerations of a religio, spiritual, philosophical, kind of a bigger picture, contemplations and in inner consideration. And I'll talk about exactly why that is. But for now, just understand that the great blessing represented by the two major benefics coming together, Jupiter and Venus, this great big blessing, spiritual in nature, it's activated, or we're going to be able to lean into it and kind of touch it not just through, prayer or spiritual, Piscean things, but it's connected here to a more tangible process, a more definite, concrete process than the Piscean process, which is notoriously nebulous. So it goes with the spiritual, but what we want is to understand how to access the spiritual in practical terms. So, like I said, reconciling division and paradox here. Inwardly, Mercury in Taurus considers inwardly. It thinks about itself, its own values, and how it appreciates itself. And Pluto in Sag could easily lend its depth to understanding all kinds of duality, separation, dichotomy, paradox. It could be forgiving those parts of organized religion that are maybe of like its lower nature, maybe those painful or harmful or tragic parts of organized and institutional religion, forgiving them. Or it could be increasing our contact with the spiritual realities that give religious institutions their power. We could really increase our contact with, the God of our understanding. It could be maybe teasing apart what we believe in our own hearts from what we've been indoctrinated with in the halls of institutions, right? So inwardly, Taurus searching our own heart and teasing apart, there's the dichotomy of Pluto, what we've been indoctrinated with. This is very much Sagittarius, the religio-philosophical imprint that we receive. And this trine and its attendant blessings here, it could generally increase the depth of our thinking, especially to give Pluto's focus and depth and intensity to all of our thoughts, but especially things related to philosophy and religion, which are Sagittarian, and to spirituality and oneness, which are Pisces, and to our own set of inner values, our own inner compass, that's Taurus. And it makes this a great time to consider one's spiritual truths and paths this month. And there's great blessing in this. We can activate blessing. When Jupiter and Venus are together, this is very auspicious, very fortunate. This is very auspicious for all kinds of activity, in fact. And in Pisces, spiritual activity, and that's the kind of activity we've been talking about related to Mercury, Pluto. So like I said, a little bit of a different formation, not so directly connected to the new moon itself, but still powerful enough that I wanted to give some voice to it. We have another one of those this month. It's a nice, weird formation. Not really one we see a lot, but we have the nodal axis T squared by Saturn pretty neatly. And, it's pretty close this month. I don't show aspects to the nodes so that this doesn't get all cluttered up. But I can assure you it's a nice close square. And that puts Saturn in a little bit of a crisis position. So anything initiated, right, in the new moon by North Node Aries Uranus. Here we have a catalyst and a spark, an initiation process. And anything initiated is going to have to undergo a tempering and a resistance. And this is going to bring delay to any processes and a promise of obstacles. So that doesn't mean that we're wasting our time or that anything else is supposed to happen but didn't. What it means is that these things that we're going to kick off, these initiatives, these designs or new habits, intentions, actions, again, initiatives, all of them are going to be grown and evolved by going through some tempering by way of delay and obstacle. It's the intention of the thing itself So, you know, like I said, we can expect the unexpected. We could expect things to come out of a little bit of nowhere. We'll look more at this later in the video, this effect of Saturn and how a Saturn T-square to the nodes may create obstacles. But for now, I want to move on. Just to synthesize this new moon, we take a look at the whole thing. What do we see? We have an eclipse. We have change, shake-up. It initiates a 6-month cycle. And with the nodes, we have new patterns of self, new directions, and new expressions of personhood with the North Node. And here, we know that the nodes always work together. So when we consider the South Node, we see that out of the material of how we relate to society and others, that's South Node in Libra, out of that material, or out of the material of how we want to relate to them, right? Because that's the North Node, Aries, that desire, that passion, that initiative. How do we want to be with others? Who's our highest self? Libra's very idealistic. And so we're putting together new ways of being, new ways of getting our wants and needs met, new initiatives and trajectories towards success, symbolized by North Node Uranus and new moon in Aries. And while we're building and trying out these brave new patterns, the theme of resistance, represented by Saturn square the nodes, is also present. And resistance to the personal process, resistance to any process, perhaps by social groups, especially work groups. It could be by social institutions. It could be by the law. It could be by the law. And this is the seed. This is setting the tone for the next 6 months till next eclipse season. So there could be really abundant spiritual blessings here with the Jupiter, Venus, Neptune conjunction, triple conjunction, connected to doing this work of personal development and especially around any themes of duality, paradox, internal contradiction, any kind of war going on within. Any kind of inner work which resolves our own separation from the source as we understand it. That's what's going on here. Any kind of inner work which resolves our separation from the source as we understand it. And all of this is sort of happening at the same time. So we're gonna roll all those ideas. I know it's a little bit of a complex one this month. We're gonna roll all those ideas into one ball of wax, and we're gonna move on to the waxing quarter moon, my friends. And with the waxing quarter moon, you start to see the basic expression of the intention of the cycle as it begins to take form. It's just starting to sprout as it moves towards that harvest, that fruition of the full moon. We have the waxing quarter. It's a quarter of the way around. It's a time to be working. It's a time to be building what we've intended. It's a time to really strive and feel that the wind is at our back. It's a period of effort, generally speaking, to bring about that fruition, the fullness of the intention of the new moon into the manifestation of the full moon. With this waxing quarter moon, we have the Sun conjoined to North Node and Uranus, so we retain that connection in Aries. We continue with these energies. And we have the Moon opposite to Saturn. The new ideas and intentions and actions that want to express, like I said, I want to repeat this, and are leading towards that full moon eclipse, big energy in high-minded, idealistic Libra. That's happening. But as they start to emerge, these patterns, the energy of the cycle, as it starts to emerge here in the waxing quarter, there's Leo moon opposed to Saturn and Capricorn. And what's more now, and we talked about Saturn, the nature of delay, the nature of obstacle, the nature of adversarial condition, the nature of restriction, the nature of restraint, the nature of contraction. This is Saturn's special medicine. And what's interesting here is that now the moon is actually square to the lunar nodes as well, which puts it in a crisis position too. So as we initiate our plans and our intentions at the time of the new moon, we may not see immediate success, but we may actually see a pushback against anything that we're personally using the momentum of the moon and the planets to empower in our lives. So expect resistance. If you meet with resistance, know that there is no problem. There's nothing wrong. The resistance is part of the journey. The obstacle is the path. And without much more to say about that chart, I want to get to the full moon. And we're here on the 15th of May, 2022. And before we start to look at the dynamics of this chart, I want to point out that the full moon reflects the manifestation of the original intention of the cycle. The manifestation, the harvest, the fruit of the plant that grew from the seed that was the new moon. So every cycle has a basic internal logic, a combination of energies that create the main axis of it, the axis of the new and full moons. And just to take a break, sort of change lanes. Mercury is retrograde, went retrograde on May 10th, 5 days prior to the full moon. Will remain retrograde until June 2nd. But more interestingly, the moon is with the south node in Libra, and we have a south node eclipse. Now, a south node eclipse tends to also distort and corrupt any energies it touches. But the interesting thing about south node, where north node gives us an appetite, south node takes something from us. It takes something, and it does that to show us spiritual truth. So it'll take what's tangible, or it'll take what's valuable. And what it's really trying to show us is that we don't need those things, or that maybe the intangible also has value, or maybe there's a spiritual truth that our fascination with the physical world is blocking. This is the South Node special medicine. And when we have a moon in Libra, the patterns that are being formed here could be around Libran themes. We have society, relationships, diplomacy and tact, idealism. And with the South Node here in Libra, we can see the distorted side of Libra, or things like a tendency to compare yourself to others. Or projections, just basic projections. To people please, that's another distorted expression of Libra. So we could have all of these expressions at the time of the full moon. Codependency, shallowness, superficial insecurity. These are the kinds of Libran. It's a lot of social distortion, right? So codependency, shallowness, and good, bad, or ugly. Always balance with Libra. The Libra's the whole purpose, whole lesson, whole goodness is to learn balance. Again, we find ourselves with the sun and moon and nodes T-squared by Saturn. Talked about obstacles. Saturn and Capricorn are resonant with judgment. They're resonant with oppression, punishment, conformity, law, traditions, status quo. Or we might be blocked inwardly this month. This could really easily happen because Saturn is ruling the physical body, boundaries and forms, discipline, but also depression, responsibility, grief, isolation, a lot of ways that we could find ourselves having a great idea, desire to do something awesome, thwarted by our own inner obstacles. If it happens, don't think you did anything wrong. Don't take it personally. It's just the energies that are floating out there. We do have with this moon, with this full moon, we have a very loaded Pisces. And one of the things that's interesting about this loaded Pisces is that Venus and Chiron are very close together, which, that's nice, that's interesting. But what's very interesting about that is that Venus is ruling the sun in Taurus and the moon in Libra. So Venus, therefore, you know, imparts that contact with Chiron to the sun and moon. And in other words, you could say, how will this manifest? How will these new patterns manifest? Well, they'll manifest relative to our relating to others, right? That's Libra. But they have the possibility here to manifest in a healing way, a deeply, powerfully, spiritually healing way. And that's what's important to focus on in this cycle. Not the obstacles that may befall your plans, not the problems that might arise right after you had a great idea to come and shut your idea down. But what we need to focus on is actually the process at hand with Mercury and Pluto, and all of this actual spiritual healing, relationship healing, and healing our relationship with ourself, which is really the main theme. That's what this is always all about. As we heal our relationship with ourselves, we're able to have better relationships with other people because we, well, our vibe attracts our tribe. This loaded Pisces here, all of these planets in Pisces, is going to create a very dramatic, very spiritual influence, which is really about spiritual healing. It's a very pacific, very visionary, very inspired set of energies. And this energy supports healing. It supports healing, repairing relationships, bringing Pisces understanding and forgiveness and grace. And also, again, I can't emphasize enough, repair to self-relationship. Where is Sun? Where is Mercury? Here in Taurus, the stars of our relationship to ourself. So this is going to be the light that Moon is reflecting. It's really very indicative of the truth that I just mentioned. It's not the reason that it's true, but it's indicative of the truth that our relationships with others are really just reflections of the light of our relationship to ourselves. So front and center here, whatever happens this month, take it on the path, take it and learn from it, take it and improve your relationship to yourself with it, and you'll be winning. You'll be on track. You'll be in line. We have some interesting trine sextile combinations from Pluto and this triple conjunction of Jupiter, Neptune, and Mars, all of which are trine sextiling the Sun-Moon opposition. And that sets up just a lot of power and support. And I want to say, even if we face obstacles, remember the blessing and the seed of the cycle, that Jupiter-Venus conjunction, and how it especially related to that deep philosophical introspection. Deep philosophical introspection. And we may have an uphill journey to implement new plans or patterns, new habits, new ways of understanding ourselves that lead to new ways of relating to others. We may find ourselves very blocked, even from within, by our own conditioning. But we can use the opportunities this cycle presents. Whether or not things work out for us personally, to heal and to forgive, to make spiritual progress, to repair relationships, to introspect deeply, and these are the kind of energies that are supported to great blessing effect. So let's move on to the waning quarter moon. This chart is going to represent a time in the lunar cycle, the waning quarter, as the moon is coming around square the sun, approaching the sun again, 3/4 of the way around the sky. This is when the lunar energies are waning. This is a time when the peak energies of the full moon are winding down, and we're making way for the new moon. So it's a time to look back, to reflect, to introspect. It's a time to examine the last couple weeks and, just kind of contemplate and meditate and begin to make room for that next new moon. Put the concerns of the process of the immediate cycles down. That's what we start to do here. And there's a lot going on. We have Pluto retrograde trying to Mercury retrograde, and you know, supported by Jupiter, Mars, and Neptune here, supported by this trine between Pluto and Mercury, supported by very, very nice sextiles, very, very, very healthy, very supportive relationships here between all these bodies. Um, and the moon has joined Saturn. The moon in Aquarius is conjoined to Saturn in Capricorn. So that moon in Aquarius, Saturn, and Capricorn brings back the resonance of the original imprint of this cycle, which was very Uranian. You know, ruler Mars was in Aquarius. Now moon's in Aquarius, rebellious, freedom-oriented Aquarius, and it contrasts with the rigid, rule-bound influence of Saturn. So, and our retrospection this cycle, as we look back at the journey, may be a study in this contrast to some extent. But the contrast between the restriction we faced and the idea of freedom that we wanted, the idea of expanse, the idea of adventure, the idea of you know, whatever it was at the new moon that arose. We have the contrast between that and then why it might have been blocked or opposed. So we might have to consider this. And that's the point. That's the point of the cycle. That's the point of the cycle. So if we feel forwarded, we have 6 months. This kicked off a 6-month cycle. That new moon eclipse kicked off a longer cycle than just this month's cycle. So if we meet initial resistance this month, believe me, the force of the catalyst, the heat of the spark is strong. It's hot. This has the potential to actually take form and do what we want it to do. But I wouldn't expect it right away in this first month. I would expect to kind of see something a little different. Something that showed us where we needed to grow or learn, something that showed us our growth edges and kind of challenged us instead of catering to us. So now before we go, I want to look at the next new moon. This is new moon on 30th of May 2022. So we're already in Taurus on fixed star Aldebaran. Is that correct? Yeah, there we are. And Sun and Moon really aren't doing too much. Last month, a very busy month. And by which I mean this month, the 30th of April, that moon was just very activated. A lot of relationships. If we look at the relationships this sun moon are making. This month, not too many. We have a nice sextile. Mars, Jupiter. Could be, you know, it could be nice, could be auspicious. There's a lot of gain in Mars, Jupiter. There's a lot of power. Yeah, there's not a lot. We'll look deeper at Aldebaran, fixed star Aldebaran, one of the more important stars in the sky next month. And for now, my friends, I just want to thank you for watching. If you want to do that YouTube stuff, do it. You know, like, subscribe. It really helps. So I appreciate everyone who supports my channel. And thank you. Thanks for paying attention to the end. Thanks for paying attention to true sidereal astrology, constellational astrology. It's not the only kind of astrology, but it's awesome. And you know, I think it's significant and important enough that I focus on it mostly in my work. Till next month, my friends, be well. I wish you all the greatest success and happiness this month, even in the face of what looks like it could be a little bit of an uphill battle at first as we gain traction and begin to move forward, eventually gaining momentum. So have faith, stay the course, and like I said, expect resistance. This month, we may be very inspired, but there could be trouble implementing the things that we're doing. Yeah, friends, thank you. If you want to know more about my work, about true sidereal constellational astrology, about evolutionary astrology, or about me, please visit my website. That's old oneskyastrology.com, the classic. Check it out, friends. And until next month, thank you.